This morning on The Dish, Steve Phelps. Born and raised near Cleveland, Phelps eventually moved to the west coast of Florida and has since created one of the most unique dining experiences in the nation while racking up honors along the way. Twice named a James Beard semifinalist for Best Chef in America, his restaurant in Sarasota is called Indigenous. If you're lucky enough to get a reservation, get ready for some of the best seafood in the land.
So this is the pompano nigiri. Ready for this one, Jeff?
Oh my goodness.
So we've got sweet soy, we've got a Szechuan chili oil, and then there's a yuzu gas streak, which is a Japanese citrus that's really, really bright. And you got the sea purslane on top with some furikake with sesame seeds and nori. So just get it all in your mouth there,
That's a work of art right here. Wow.
The impeccable balance that Steve Phelps brings to his food is something he's been cultivating since he was a teenager, but really took off about 20 years ago when he and his wife left their home outside Cleveland for what they thought was going to be a short trip to Florida.
I think we spent an afternoon that day at the beach and saw a dolphin jump up in front of us and were enlightened, said, wow, this is pretty nice. Fast forward almost 20 years later and I'm sitting with you outside my restaurant now.
Indigenous was opened in 2011 in a residential neighborhood in Sarasota, which has long had a thriving arts community. Phelps set out to create a seafood oasis.
The word indigenous, when people think Florida, they think citrus, and citrus is not indigenous to Florida.
Correct. Indigenous ingredients here, you know, for Florida really were the rice and the corn and things like that. And it's tough because there's a lot of confusion with that. And I have to say it as a chef because I get a lot of calls and they go, do you make Native American dishes all day there? But indigenous to us means that it is from the area or native to the area, and that's what we do with all the food that we can.
How do you describe your food philosophy?
My food is food that's recognizable, and I think responsible is a name that we like to use.
One example, his support of local farm-raised fish, which haven't always had the best reputation. That is changing fast as conditions inside aquaculture farms improve dramatically and as the global demand for seafood has doubled in the last 60 years.
I'm so fascinated by the technology that they do. These recirculating tanks that they use, these fish never stay in the same water. The feeds have come so far advanced in technology with what they're utilizing in those too. We've got so many different species, and I rely on them as a restaurant owner because my menus have to continuously have an item on there.
Do you think fish farming is the future?
It is. I'm afraid of what's happening out on our waters. The pollution in the water, the quotas for the fishermen, they're all starting to get, pollution's getting higher, quotas getting smaller, and we're gonna need that protein.
Look at that stuff.
From a relatively small kitchen, Phelps turns out an incredible variety. From all that seafood to these ridiculously good beignets.
There you go, Jeff. Try one of those bad boys.
Oh my Lord. Whoa.
And there's more. We'll let him do the honors on the larger spread he prepared.
We've got some cobia hot dogs with a little local sauerkraut and some Cleveland Burtman's mustard. We spice it with some pastrami spices, a little baked shrimp and scallops with Everglades butter. This is barrelfish over a bacon potato latke with a little yuzu hollandaise and jerk relish, our house pickles. This is redfish over Congaree and Penn Midlands with a little Nashville hot butter and a little hot drizzle. Those are our beignets we discussed. This is a green curry fish dip that we do here and a little bit of sesame nori crackers. Our tribute to strawberry shortcake is that panna cotta with some Florida strawberries and some sweetened biscuit crumble. We had that nigiri with the pompano earlier. A little Thai crispy pork belly with fish sauce and Thai fish sauce caramel and a baked egg. And then that's our wild mushroom bisque, which is a big staple here. We've made that for years. A couple cold brews from Calusa, our local brewery. And then, of course, I have to have Buckeyes on my menu, being a Ohio State boy. And so we've got a little raspberry jam and some banana cashew crunch underneath those.
Now, I work with a Michigan fan. I'm a little worried about how that's going to go over, but it looks delicious to me.
We've had quite a few Michigan people in here say that they really enjoyed it.
If Phelps can convince his arch enemies to eat and love his food, there may be no limits on what he can shoot for.
Buckeyes and beer, that's a thing, right?
It is today. Shall we toast to the beer and eat a Buckeye? Cheers.
Though for him, it's always going to be bigger than just what's on the plate.
16 salmon after 4.
16 hurts, yeah.
Make that 15.
You say that education is just as important as the actual food that you're serving here. What's the most important message that you want to get across?
Making your dining experience and your choices good for the planet. I think that's one thing that we've always put emphasis on here. People ask a lot of questions in our restaurant, and I'm lucky enough to have a staff that wants to educate a guest as well as I do.
And our wild fish tonight, red snapper from Madeira Beach, caught off a boat called the Fish Bustas.
And if you know that a chef is educated and a staff is educated and can teach you about where things come from, why we utilize it, and it's good for your body and the planet, that means we just did our job today.
And we thank Steve Phelps at Indigenous, just a great guy. Dana, you don't have to cheer for the Buckeyes, but you do have to eat Buckeyes when you come back.
I will happily, as a Wolverine, yeah, as a Wolverine, I'll happily devour Buckeyes. No problem there. No problem there.
All right, dinner together at Indigenous. It's booked.